Hello, my name again, Bob Fitrakis. I'm a professor at Columbus State Community College. My PhD is in political science, where I studied public policy. So a lot of the things that I'm going to say here today, I think are important, even though some of us already know these. It's good to go out in public, particularly in the shadow of the Columbus Dispatch, which doesn't often mention the type of analysis that many of us have as social justice and human rights activists. First of all, we were talking about the death penalty. Let's remind ourselves that there are only about 20 countries in the world out of 193 that practice the death penalty. Who are we in league with? Who are our cultural allies? Well, let's list the top 5. China, ruled by an authoritarian government. Iran, who we keep threatening to go after for being rogue. Iraq, who we established their government. And Saudi Arabia, a 12th century authoritarian regime. Those are the top 5, with the United States being in the top 3. Well, what are they doing in Canada, in Europe, in the European Union, in Russia? They don't have the death penalty in those countries. There is no death penalty. When I was growing up in the 1960s and they tried to say, well, America's the greatest country in the world, we had outlawed the death penalty because we knew it was racist and class-based. The evil Soviet Union killed people. Who would have thought that this nation that prides itself on freedom, that wrote no cruel and unusual punishment into its constitution, would be standing with Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and China killing people, while the other humane nations of the world realize that man is fallible, that humans are fallible, and they don't kill people. So that is part of our struggle here today, to remind people what is actually going on in the world. And if we sit back, we should also remind ourselves 2 things. I was involved in a couple of these things as a reporter. One of the things we need to think about is, up to a few years ago, there was no other country on planet Earth who would kill brain-damaged juveniles. There was only one nation, the United States, that said, yes, 14, and with an IQ below 70, we'll kill them, because we stand for law and order. The Supreme Court says now that if your IQ's under 70, but when Ohio brought back its death row, who did they kill? They killed one of God's most pathetic creatures, Wilford Berry, a man who was a sub-70 IQ, who also had been beaten on death row and was brain damaged, who this state told him to appointed him a clergy who told him that he should waive his rights because Jesus wanted to meet him. What type of cruel society does that sort of things? And Betty Montgomery, then the Attorney General, who won the name Bloody Betty because of her ability to kill a brain-damaged man who couldn't really speak the language. And they knew from the record he hadn't even done the actual killing. He admitted to it because he had had such a wretched life in these institutions in Ohio, where he had been put as a ward of the state after being a foster child, where he had been sexually molested. So we took one of the most fragile people and sacrificed him and talked him into waiving his rights. 25% of all the people on death row come from Hamilton County. Why? Because they believe in no direct evidence there. They believe that the word of one of their professional snitches is good enough to kill people. It should be no surprise the first 100 people on death row in Ohio, 51% were black. When I was dealing in the John Bird case, Johnny Bird, John Bird did not commit the murder. The state of Ohio fought the blood evidence against him, said, no, we can't look at DNA and blood. We got the word of a snitch, who he didn't disclose that he just beat people in the prison infirmary. He's going to say it's true. Now, the prison guards and the jailers said that the supposed snitch incident where Johnny Bird and the snitch sat on a couch watching PM Magazine, the guards wouldn't go along with that lie. They said, we've never had PM Magazine on. It's always been ESPN. So there was no black and white guy sitting on a couch watching the singing Tewksbury family sing about their dead father so they could introduce a tape that prejudiced the jury. So in the Johnny Bird case, they fought the actual evidence to kill a man. It's about time that Ohio joined the civilized world. If the state of Michigan can do it, why do we want to compete with them in football instead of competing in human rights? That's what we ought to be competing in. A civilized standard. Let's join the European Union. Let's join the people